We are back with another episode covering the coronavirus and, more importantly, strategies to deal with the stress, just all this, being isolated or socially distant from people, not necessarily fully isolated. I think some of us have family around or we can communicate in different ways. But I know that Dr. Kevin and I would love to discuss some of these strategies that are really great strategies for just stress itself or anxiety and just dealing with life. But I think this pandemic is really creating a perfect opportunity to discuss these things because we're all at a heightened level with this, I think, in a massive way. What's your thoughts on one of those first strategies, Dr. Kevin?
I was a couple of things. I think number one, or these self-care strategies are things that we should all be doing anyway. But they just become much more prominent when we're under some significant distress. The other thing I want to say is if you look at me and I'm ghosting around, that's because I actually am a ghost. I'm using this new technology to project a visual field so that you don't see my dirty room behind me. So anyway, I'm not really a ghost. I just want you to,
I'm really Dr. Cady, though. I'm not a ghost.
you're the non-ghost. But these self-care strategies, and a lot of them may seem simple, but they're like critically important to your health. And they're even more important when you're under significant distress, that threat-based stress where your brain is basically saying, hey, something's crazy is going around and I don't think it's going to turn out really well. And when you have that level of stress in your life, the physiology in your body changes. And that's good in small little doses. Like if the tiger is going to attack you and it bites you, those changes are actually good. If the tiger bites you, it gets you ready to heal, gets you ready to, blood goes there, clots well. Your immune system's all revved up. But the problem is that if the tiger doesn't bite you and that leads on for days and days and days and certainly months and months and months, those things that were mobilized with endocrine factors and immune factors that were mobilized to help you out, they don't do really well when there's nothing to fight and so they start doing not so good things. So super, super critical to do when you're not under stress and absolutely vital to do when you're under significant distress. So one simple one would be if you're already in a quarantine, or should we say a restricted environment where you're at home, one big one is to make sure that you're sleeping. And we had talked about sleep. That's one of the key things to start off. And how are you going to sleep effectively? A sleep specialist that I know had a great saying, whereas basically if you're not physically tired, you're not going to be able to be, how did she phrase it? So like if you're not physically tired, you're not going to be able to be mentally tired, which is what you're going to be needing to do to sleep, right? So if you don't exhaust your body, you're much more likely to lie awake all day. And if you're trapped in your house, it may be that you aren't moving too much or you're sitting on the couch and doing those things. So that home exercise, I think, is a big one. Actually, that kills two birds with one stone, because now you get the physical exercise, but also stimulates good immune factors and actually is a distress reducer. And then that also facilitates sleep, which is a powerful restorative effect on your body. So those would be my two bigs: move and sleep.
Definitely. And I'll have to add to the sleep aspect, because I was really impressed by just a lot of the research done in the world of sleep. And I mentioned the book because I've read it, Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, and talked about even losing 1 to 2 hours every night and how that can depress your immune system by 50 or 60%. Don't quote me exactly on those numbers, but it was in that ballpark. But a lot of times we minimize that little deprivation, but chronically doing that over time has a significant impact on overall health. And in this world with this pandemic, we want to, obviously we all want this quick fix and this magic cure and something to target it or some vaccine to prevent it. All of us want that, but in the meantime, we have to still take care of ourselves. And so sleep is that number one thing. And if we're not having to get up to go to work, I would say the biggest priority is get your sleep. And if you've not made good habits in your life, a lot of times the easiest, best time when you have the most willpower is after a good night's sleep. And when you wake up the next day, just make yourself go outside and go for a walk. Like the movement we're talking about, if it is a safe environment to go outside. And if not, maybe just open the window and look outside, make yourself feel like you're outside and various, I mean, it could be just basic yoga movements, and you don't have to be hardcore. There's plenty of YouTube videos out there, but if you're a beginner, I always remind people, don't act like you're going to run the marathon within 24 hours. You know, start with real simple, gentle things, and you can progress over time and actually maybe improve your fitness, even though you've been stuck at home. And, you know, just walking can save lives in so many different ways. And I don't have to hit all the medical points on that, but most of us know we need to do that. So if you don't feel inclined to do it and you are living with somebody, maybe a child, and you want to be a good role model, make sure you both get a good night's sleep and go outside together and do it together. You actually have time to chat with your own family member. So I definitely agree with those first 2 points.
And actually what you reminded me of too is if being stuck at home, it could be very, very easy for your sleep to get disrupted, not even due to the stress that we're under, right? So some of us, like me, my stress trigger, one of my big ones is I do have difficulty sleeping when I'm under stress. It's like, that's just one of the ways I recognize I'm under stress. But when, and we're already stressed out, so you may already have problems sleep there. But the other thing is if your schedule gets disrupted, say you are either working at home or worse, maybe you're furloughed simply because of the nature of the world that we're in, and now you have this nebulous zone where you no longer have that structure anyway. And sometimes we like to push against the structure and we wish, oh, you know, if I didn't have to go to work. But what that structure allows you to do is to have a very routine sleep pattern. Mm-hmm. And if you start losing that sleep pattern, it becomes much more difficult to get restorative sleep. And this seems to be, the older that we get, the more important it is to have really a fixed bedtime and a fixed wake up time. So I would highly recommend people that even if you're not working or you're out of work or you're working at home so you can work whenever you want to and you don't have to go in the office at 8 o'clock, is if you normally get up at 6, continue getting up at 6. Continue to pretend that you're going in the office just so you keep that normal sleep architecture going and you're in the other part. You know, having that structure, if we have a structure that we can kind of fit into, it's a little bit healthier for brains in a lot of ways, because then it's not going, well, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do now?
Right.
You know, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is the story, you know, this is kind of the pattern I'm fitting, and it makes it a lot easier on the decision fatigue.
Right. Well, I can't say that I've been really, I think because psychologically, or I realize that I'm probably not going to be getting up early for a little while, that I've given myself that permission to go to bed a little later, but I'm still getting like 8 or 9 hours of sleep consistently, which I feel very rested every day. So that's a plus, but I'll need to, you know, shift it by an hour or 30 minutes.
You may be one of those people that just doesn't have a problem. My mom has no problem with sleep ever. Like,
yeah,
falls asleep.
Corey, my husband, he's more of a night owl, and mine depends on what my life consists of, but I've never had trouble sleeping. He's more like you, like if there's stress, it might affect his sleep more than it would me. I have to have extreme stress, where I do have trouble waking up abruptly early, or, you know, having trouble going to sleep. But that's it. I know that it takes an extreme amount, and that happens very rarely. I've been very blessed, at least at this point in my life, that I can get my sleep. The things that are affected is how I prioritize my activity or the kind of food I eat. That's sometimes how my stress manifests, and those choices. But speaking of other choices for self-care, I think multiple communities in wellness, medical, would say that breathing and how just being mindful of our own, just what we're going through, instead of just being a victim to it, and slowing down and taking a deep breath. And there's all different types of ways of doing relaxation exercises. And for me, I just tend to slow down. Actually, my iPhone watch will let me know if I'm not honest with myself that I need to breathe. But, you know, just breathing in for several seconds and then holding it for several seconds and then exhaling for an extended period of time really helps with that. And it's helped even friends of mine who've had some, you know, panic attacks or issues with that. What about you?
Oh, breathing is one of my favorite kind of tools, like wellness tools that there is. And if you could package what you could do with slow, deep breathing, it would be the #1 best-selling drug in the history of medicine.
Right.
Because it is so unbelievably powerful. It's powerful as a PRN, as needed thing. So, if you're ever getting all worked up, and the thing that you do is you create that pause, that's the magic pause button where you stop, you take a big deep breath in from your belly, hold it for a couple of seconds and let it out slowly. You can either do it through your mouth or your nose, and then do that two to 6 times.
And it's free.
Yeah. Free and easy. Like there's nobody out there that can breathe, because I guarantee you're doing it right now. All we have to do is change it a little bit.
Yes.
And that pause button it's profound. And then if you are doing it more from a meditative or restorative fashion, then you can even do it where you set a timer and then you're just doing slow, deep breathing start with 1 minute and then kind of go from there. I built an entire stress program over breathing, and we started with I think we started with 1 minute, maybe it was 2 minutes, and just kind of built it up over time so that you're getting the practice of breathing and you're doing it and calming your mind down at least once or twice a day. And then you start building in that area of, okay, well, if I'm feeling stressed, how can I do something right now? And it's been slow, deep breath. And it is just so powerful. In fact, it's so simple. I don't think people appreciate it because it is so simple.
Right.
But it's the simple things that are the best type of things to have.
Right. But it's like, it actually is so much more complex internally. Like just from the one conscious thing you can do, even though it's an unconscious thing too, that it's the one conscious thing you can do to interrupt your pattern because of the vagal nerve. I mean, you can correct me on any of this, but it has multiple connections throughout our body on how it impacts the system. So one little simple thing actually has a complex interaction within the body that you can control. I think that's pretty fascinating, but I'm kind of a geek or nerd about that stuff.
Well, and some people want to know that. Well, how can breath be so powerful? Well, if you have your sympathetic nervous systems engaged, that's the fight, flight, or freeze response, and it starts doing and it's shunting blood all those other places. Well, the kind of the counterbalance of that is the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest, relax, and recover system. And the easiest way that you can engage that system is slow, deep breathing. That's right. I mean, there's all sorts of other ways. Exercise can do it. Focused activity can do it, focused relaxing activity, flow state, but breathing, it's so easy, and it's when you're in doubt, I used to say, when in doubt, breathe. It's really is when in doubt, breathe it out. So anytime you're feeling stressed and you don't know what's going on, take that big breath and breathe out all that doubt that you possibly can, and just keep doing it until things start calming down. And it is, and it just, it's not just your breathing, it's not just your oxygenation, it actually does affect your cardiac tone. It affects all those other areas of the body as well, because the parasympathetic nervous system basically engages every single organ system in your body. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, this whole idea of slowing down and taking a deep breath is, and this is my perspective, is that it interrupts a pattern, and the pattern has been on, fight or flight or freeze, or this overall stressed system. And it's ironic that, and not really that ironic to me, but it is interesting that interrupting a pattern in so many different ways, whether I'm sitting here, your body subconsciously sometimes wants to interrupt the pattern by shifting you because of the pressure and lack of blood flow in one area. It wants to shift. It knows how to keep yourself in balance so you don't develop an ulcer on your rear end. And if I'm sitting for long periods of time, even just standing up for 1 minute or walking around, go downstairs, grab water, come back up, I can sit a lot longer. I mean, even when if someone wants to just do push-ups and they only could do 10, if they give themselves a little break and interrupt the pattern, and there's a lot of reasons for these things, but you can go back and do more, even when you're about to fall on your face. Like, if you just think about interrupting your pattern, and, that goes a long way in how you're, maybe just having a little variety. Maybe, when it comes to coping with these stresses, is do something enjoyable and try something new, novel, as far as maybe a different kind of book you've always been wanting to read, or take advantage of those things that you feel like you never had time for. But
Absolutely. Although there's some people are saying, I'm so stressed out, I can't think about anything else. Right?
Breathe.
And it would be, stop and stop and breathe. And then the other part about that, I guess, is because if you are, when you are under like horrible distress, breathing is key. Becomes more difficult to think kind of big picture. You're actually focus of your perception narrows down, and you start just thinking immediate actions. So an immediate action you can do in that scenario is if you're living in a time of significant uncertainty, which we are, but now you're living in a period of personal uncertainty. Maybe you're now having financial stressors. Maybe you have a loved one in the hospital or something else. After you've started the breathing, so you put that pause button, one of the things that you can do is then actually express those fears. And writing in that regard, I'm not talking expressive writing per se, which is a different kind of tool, is just actually being able to specifically list out what those fears and concerns and stressors are and write them down so that they're now visible. Because now instead of having an invisible fear or a poorly defined fear, what you're getting it out on the paper is now it becomes visible, it becomes defined, it becomes real. And once it becomes real, now you can start developing a plan of action to target it. So again, that's if you're under so much distress, take the breath, then start writing out this stuff so that you can actually see it. And it's not going to magically make it go away, but being able to just to write out specifically what you're afraid of or what your concerns are. I can tell you in general, that will help you feel better because now you've identified it, you've defined it. And once you start defining those characteristics, you can see, oh, wait a second, I could probably do this to mitigate this, or I can do this, or there's someone I can ask about that, or maybe I need more information here. But you can go forward with a plan of action rather than kind of having the brain sit in the uncertainty stew, where it just starts going, what if, and it just starts generating this massive increase in panic on top of it.
Right. And you're really allowing that bridge of when sometimes stress can really breed this opportunity for creativity. And so by being able to somehow acknowledge on paper what those things are, so you can actually have a concrete way of creating something new or different. And sometimes our lives are going to have to change, and mine included. It just depends on where this all evolves. So yeah, I think I love writing things down, but some people aren't used to that. But I think it's really therapeutic.
Getting it out in the open for sure.
Yeah. One last thing I thought we should mention is how important nutrition is. I know that a lot of physicians don't appreciate it because we're not taught these things, but nutrition in and of itself, not just from what they say physical health, but your overall just mental health is going to be supported by better nutrition. And real foods, it's really easy to just get a box and eat processed things, but in the end that doesn't help us the most. And if we're going to be better for our family and for ourselves, then we need to get good nutrition. And of course, I always push the things that people are less likely to eat, and those are plant-based foods. It's not that I'm saying anti-meat, it's just there's a lot of nutrients that a lot of us end up missing if we don't make sure we get all those other good things in. And it's a great opportunity, as Dr. Kevin and I discussed earlier, is to maybe start that garden you never said you had time for. I did. I've got 4 hanging little baskets of things and things in planters and in the ground. So some of the places may not be open, but some of, I think like Lowe's, Home Depot, and those other places still have some items that people could grow. You never know how long we're going to be in this. And while we're in it, you might as well let something grow and let nature take its course and provide you with maybe some food in the future. Save the seeds, learn how to do that on YouTube, and you can plant your own stuff perpetually. But any thoughts about nutrition?
Oh, no, the key is really eating real food, right? Not the fake stuff that, all that processed stuff. And the opportunity that we do have is that we have time, because it usually the things, well, I don't have time to do this stuff. Well, if you're stuck in home and you're under these kind of isolative protocols, you now have more time. So now you can explore. There's so many recipes and YouTube videos and God knows what else that'll teach you how to do any of this stuff. It really becomes a question of what you want to do. The second part about that is from a financial situation. Granted, like super fresh produce can be more expensive than some of these other things, but some of the bulk items when it comes to things like beans and those are more time intensive in a lot of ways, but they're not expensive, and they're not whole, well, they're whole foods, not in the way of Amazon Whole Foods, but meaning full nutrient foods. And so now you can kind of march down the ladder and start using things that are closer to their base state, like a bean or a leaf or something, rather than whatever's processed in the box,
Right.
and start making real food out of that. And you have the time. It's generally less expensive. You're learning a new skill that in some ways may be enjoyable, and it doesn't have to be complex. You know, this cooking does, you can cook with 3 ingredients. And in fact, that's my sort of limit on a lot of the cooking I do. I want it has to be 3 ingredients or less. And we survive. Maybe a couple more here and there. And actually, we eat pretty good. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, definitely. I think, you know, if you can have a stash of, you know, onions, potatoes, you know, legumes or the beans, you know, there's some things that can be frozen. So I've cut up a lot of vegetables, especially some of the, it's funny, I went in there and it was all empty in one of these grocery stores, except for the organic produce and of different, you know, vegetables people aren't usually accustomed to. Like, this is the perfect time to, like, you know, grab something different. You don't have to eat it in its raw state. You can, you know, saute just about anything with a little bit of oil and put some onions, and if you like mushrooms, whatever, saute those, and then just cut up the vegetables, whatever they are, even if you can't pronounce the name, and just saute them together and try something new, and have that for 2 or 3 days if you make a big batch. And I mean, I just had Swiss chard and leeks, and it sounds gross, but I had, they have so many. Yeah, but it's really good because, you know, if you go, like, some of these places have the spices, you can just put them in bags and they're like 30 cents, you know, for a little bag. You can get your spices, so it tastes really awesome.
Bulk food aisle.
You know, what's that?
Is it the bulk food aisle? I love the bulk food aisle. It's like my favorite place to go.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize there was that many different spices. They even have things for you can. I have fish that I caught with my father last week, and it's bass. I'm like, I don't know if I really want the bass, but all these spices, and I coat it with all these breadcrumbs. They have fancy breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And that stuff was good. Like restaurant. I wouldn't say I'm the best cook, but it was, you know, stuff in your freezer. And
well, here's the other, you can start doing just a little bit of cooking and you start getting better. And I used to be a big, like, oh, I always want to go out. I want to go out. I like to go out to eat all the time. And my wife wasn't never big. She didn't like it as much as I did. It was kind of a point of contention. And then, and she's a really good cook. And I'm okay. Like, my 3 ingredients are literally olive oil, salt, and pepper. And if I have those, I'm pretty good. But, you know, once you start cooking and then you start going, and then what really changed, we would go to a restaurant. I'm like, what do we pay for this? I can make this at home. You know, it's not like, and it's probably going to be better. And then if you're going to, you know, you're stuck at home, a glass or 2 of wine a day is not bad for you. And, you know, that's a lot cheaper than having to buy it when you're at dinner somewhere else. And you can find it more. If you may find through this global pandemic, some really powerful and useful skills that make your home life even better than they were before.
Absolutely. And I have to add on a note about gardening or trying something new, just have a little bit, and I can't make you want to feel this or do this, but I would say that keep an open mind and be okay with just following like a recipe or just going step by step. No expectations of how it's going to turn out. Just literally just go through and just do each step. It's that initial phase of just trying that's like that, you need that for the inertia or the momentum for you to feel like just doing it next time. Everything that you try to accomplish, you're going to have that initial resistance. And because it's an unknown and you've never done it before, but I'd say go find something you can plant with your kid in the ground. It's such a great opportunity to teach them where food comes from, and that these nutrients, even how you take care of a plant can be reinforce how you take care of your own body. I mean, there's so much good. Also something to do and get outside a little bit, and instead of being cooped up, I think it's get a little sunshine if it's not too cloudy. But, you know, just hearing nature, I just feel so much better when I actually pay attention to what's around me, instead of being focused on the stress. There's a lot of beauty in this world despite all that's going on. And I think we have to keep getting doses of that for ourselves and for our sanity.
No, we kind of pull them back a little bit and return to what really matters, right?
Zoom out.
You just need to move, you need to sleep, you need to eat, you need to see your family, do a couple other things. That's about it, right? And all this other nonsense can kind of get cleared away a little bit. It just may take a pandemic to focus our attention on really, 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 really what is crucial.
Yeah. I think it's a transcendental moment for the country dealing with this pandemic.
Oh yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Any other things to add?
Well, there's a lot, but
but we can continue next week.
We can continue on another week. Yeah. And as always, if you guys have anything out there and you want to have specific questions on, let us know. But I think through the key thing, like with this, I mean, obviously I was talking to another friend a couple days ago, and I called it a purple swan. There's a black swan, which is an extremely rare, extremely relevant, has, a huge change associated with it. And they say in hindsight, you can only predict it by hindsight. And I don't know if necessarily that's true, but this is like all like 3 or 4 of those black swans put together, which creates a purple swan, which is like a really globally defining moment. Like this will be something that is 100 years from now, this will be talked about. But we're resilient. Like when we've talked multiple times about this, the human body is this remarkably resilient healing machine, and humans as a species are remarkably resilient. And so no matter how dark it seems right now, or how dark it may, tomorrow may seem, we have this amazing capacity to overcome really, really bad things. And so as much bad as being published, there's a lot of good things, and there's going to be some really fantastic innovations, I think, coming out of this as well. People are going to, we're great at adapting. We're great at overcoming struggles, and we're going to come through this. It's going to be challenging. It will be challenging.
Yeah, I agree. And I said transcendental moment, but I think more of an existential mini crisis. It could be both, but like a existential crisis for some, because they have to evaluate what's really important. But like you said, there's so much good that can come of people from this, what seems to be a not an enjoyable time. It's fairly stressful for so many, but I think there is so much hope. And as we say with this Paindora podcast, there is a lot of hope because of the capacity of the human being.
Yep. People are, there's a lot, we see all the bad behaviors, but there's a lot of good behaviors that are happening too. And those are the ones that we should be focusing on. So.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess till next week, I'm Dr. Cady with Dr. Kevin on the Paindora podcast, trying to give you hope and encouraging you to stay
safe and socially isolated.
There you go. Bye.
All right, take care, folks.